Yeah, you're
Oh,
fine.
all right,
I
bet.
started recording, by the way.
All right, all good. I just needed to double check. What is the difference between traditional and non-traditional national security? Like, do you have any real world examples to better clarify it?
Yeah, and how that will be on the quiz, it's good to see you, Joseph, will actually be the idea of constructivism. It's constructivism that kind of takes national security to another level. So before it was more traditional territory, military, and so on. Now that's still important. We see with the Ukraine crisis. The problem, however, is what they think is we have to start talking about norms, people's rights, education. There are other ideas of national security, and this will not be on the exam because this is another week, or will it? Let me take a look. The one on the integration of ex-combatants. That's very important. I mean, that's the whole point of the GI Bill, among others, is to get people involved in society, to incorporate them into society. So it's like the idea is to kind of expand our understanding of national security. So traditional is more territory, military, etc. That's still important. Look what's going on in the Ukraine. But then additionally, they want to expand it everything from gay rights, human rights, gender rights, etc. Is that okay?
That is perfect. Thank you.
I don't know. Perfect. That's a high bar. Who else has a question about this?
Yes, Professor. In your study guide, it shows Vietnam twice. Is there different, I guess, examples of what you want us to study for Vietnam, or is there a specific area?
Oh, that's good. Vietnam put up twice. That's really that's good. Because it is important. But the way I use it is the idea of power is ambiguous, like Han Morgenthau talked about. Power isn't just power, right? Like military power. Power can be ambiguous. We were able, from the US perspective, to defeat Nazi Germany, right? And Japan. And so was Russia, obviously involved in other countries. I don't want to take all the credit, but we do like to take credit. But then we go to Vietnam, we lose. We lost in Nicaragua. We lost in a whole host of countries people don't talk about. Why? These are very difficult. One, as we talked about, insurrections, guerrilla warfare, insurgencies are very difficult to root out. But additionally, power is ambiguous. So the Viet Cong understood the territory. They had the tunnels that we didn't understand. And I talk about that a lot throughout these videos. The same thing goes with like the Centro Andino bombing, right? That basically is saying urban warfare. I like the word warfare more than terrorism, because terrorism has this intersubjective understanding. What is a terrorist, right? So this is very difficult to root out. So there's other types of power. And one of the big things I mentioned, and I mentioned it if you took my US foreign policy class, is Henry Kissinger said to Nixon, we're fighting Vietnam and Cambodia with planes made to fight the Soviet Union, right? So power is different. You need a different kind of strategy there, which we did not have. So that is in a nutshell what the idea of Vietnam is all about. And I also do ask about the Centro Andino bombing, how it's about urban terrorism is difficult to address. And I think it's difficult anyways. But the idea is that, power is kind of ambiguous. There's popularity, there's, you're seen as an invader, just a wide range of things. And it also reflects the whole asymmetrical idea of warfare, invisibility, non-conventional power is ambiguous. We could go on. Problems with counterinsurgencies, because that's what we were doing, asymmetric threats, etc. And since we're getting into that, I might as well just jump into it. Compound warfare is very important. Why I put it on the exam. It's basically the use of irregular forces, like in Russia and the Ukraine conflict. What happens is that, although in that article it was on Lebanon, is that a power will try to get other powers involved, and they might not be like, well, I'm not talking about the balance of power, but like individual groups, and they're basically irregular forces. And Russia has been trying to call on these irregular forces from Africa and other places to actually fight in the Ukraine. And obviously we've seen US soldiers, Canadian soldiers, and others kind of fight with the Ukrainian. That's compound warfare. When you start bringing in significant power through other means. When Gaddafi lost power and was killed in Libya, all those kind of the compound warfare, that is the irregular soldiers, went to Mali. I talk about a lot in all my classes, and started causing havoc there to overthrow the government. So this is something that's very, very important to understand in just about any crisis. It's basically irregular forces that are being used alongside other forces. You could call them paramilitaries or something like that. You could call them anything, but I like the idea of compound warfare. It's in the reading, and it's very important. And it's not cyber warfare. It's not conventional warfare. It's not law warfare. It's this use of irregular forces. So these are all good questions that are kind of bringing up some good stuff. What else do we have?
Yes, Professor, just to I guess add on to the compound warfare, these groups aren't associated with the military, right? They just work, I guess,
Alongside.
alongside.
Right.
Okay.
They're not like paid. They might be paid a stipend or something like that. They get lunch, something that's something like that. So other than that, no, they're not really related to it. And they do hire them because I'm looking to see if there's anyone waiting, but it doesn't seem to be. They basically are like private military companies and stuff. We start seeing them as well. So good questions here. Sorry for making people wait. Some people were writing and I felt terrible, but I was like stuck in the thing, and I was like try to get it. Any other questions?
In the article, can Pompeo and Bolton coexist? Is this really meant to talk about the disparity between like the bureaucracy and National Security Council? Because like when I read, I keep mumbling myself over.
Yeah, it's basically about bureaucratic infighting. Pompeo won the bureaucratic battle, as we know. What makes that article interesting, even though people might say, oh, that's a dated article, it's worthy to read because it's about who wins and loses these battles. And that matters for national security, not just for the United States, but all the other countries. So one of the things people talk about Putin, but you got to, okay, who's advising Putin? Putin actually, fired a few people. People have stepped down. That's very, very important to understand, because if you're going to, we like to say, oh, Biden, Trump, etc., big names, Putin, but who is really has the president's ear? And I do a lot of that in other classes, and it's very, very important to understand, because you have to ask yourself, who is the president listening to? So when Bolton lost that bureaucratic battle, Pompeo won, so Pompeo's ideas would influence Trump more so. Anything else? Nothing? Who else? What else? Think about it. Think about it.
You have log rolling and Plan Columbia on here twice.
Yes, that's because I wrote it. Let me tell you something, a little good advice. If a professor writes the article, you gotta know, because no one's gonna read our stuff. We're not Stephen King. We have to force people to do it. So basically, yeah, that it's a good point. And that is essentially the idea that national security policy. I'm trying to, when I stumble sometimes, it's because I'm trying to fit it in the way it's worded on the exam, right? So you're not like, the goal isn't to catch you or, make you sift through thousands of notes or anything like that. It's kind of get the main ideas and kind of understand the material. The idea for that is that national security is not just about statecraft, rational actor calculations, etc. There's a lot of log rolling going on, meaning you basically have these companies, vying for power and influence, or you buy, say, Lockheed Martin planes or whatever. And in that case, it represents all these companies that were lobbying the government to buy their helicopters and other things. And then they ship them to Colombia to say, for example, get rid of the the coca crop, which was a total disaster. But at the same time, for the peasants, but at the same time, we bought helicopters from, Connecticut and Texas. And this becomes problematic. In fact, this is a little aside, which is very important to understand. I just had the person from the Arizona legislature thing. I don't know if anyone ever did that internship, but it's an internship for students. You go there. It's good. You get paid and stuff. And she said that someone asked, do you even have time to eat? Because it's a pretty rigorous internship. And someone said, yeah, the lobbyists are always bringing us food. And I was like, oh my God, that's like so corrupt. It's like, how can lobbyists bring food? And they just drop it off and their staff eats it. I'm like, that's like such a conflict of interest. That's like one of you, Thomas brings me a dinner the night before grades are due, right? I mean, that's like not appropriate. So I'm like saying like, that's terrible, but this is how it is. It's like lobbying is a key thing. I'm not attacking anyone who's a lobbyist here. But it is somewhat corrupt to a certain degree. They call them Beltway bandits. And what that I hope that article captures is that maybe Plan Colombia wasn't all about, saving Colombia. There were a lot of economic interests involved. And that's what that's about. So that's an excellent question. And I did what I can go through a couple. Han Morgenthau is on there. His whole idea is power is ambiguous. Just like the Vietnam War and everything else, it's power is ambiguous. We basically have the idea that power is like, and then the Russians are failing this effect too, right? Because they're basically, we can take the Ukraine. Although I'm a little incredulous that they're that naive after the Chechen wars. Maybe I'll put that on the exam. Because, remember, Putin was in charge of those Chechen wars, and there were like 4 of them that lasted decades. I mean, even before like some of our students were born, they were fighting. And then the Black Widows came. Those were the women who were killed by the soldiers' wives. The soldiers who were killed, their wives came out as terrorists, and we let it go. We didn't do anything about it. So he kind of knows warfare. But on the other flip side, the Ukrainians could be surprising the Russians to a certain degree. And that's about power being ambiguous. It is true, Russia has more military, but you have a lot more out there. And one, it's public sympathy. The world does have a lot of sympathy for the Ukrainians, which has translated into like drones from Turkey. People don't talk about, but Turkey has literally sent a lot of drones to Ukraine. Obviously, NATO, the United States, even though not everyone has sanctions on Russia. It basically, Ukraine does have a lot of sympathy here, and I think it has increased a lot of dislike for Russia. So that could be a part of power. Zelensky has been involved in huge, diplomacy, right? And so the style of diplomacy of trying to gain sympathy, etc., is a part of power. So that's about Han Morgenthau. Counterinsurgency is beyond is on there. Remember, that's a fusionist approach. The idea there is that people in the Missouri National Guard were trained as agriculturists, and they got involved in that. And that's very, very important, because it's basically saying we don't need to train the military just only, in military matters. We need to expand the military into other matters. And that's very, very important. What else? Myanmar, in that case, basically, I want you to know about the Myanmar crisis in the sense that this is not just about state actors. It's about non-state actors, neighboring states like Bangladesh, just a whole host of issues. And that's why at the beginning of the course, you might remember I asked a question on, what other crises are still going on. That's one of the lamentable things about life. Like, my argument is, we don't talk about the COVID, no more masks, etc., because of the Ukraine crisis, because we're not smart enough to handle 2 crises at once. So right when the Ukraine happened, it's like, oh, now we need, no more COVID, just the Ukraine. We're not able to juggle this stuff. And there's a lot of important national security crises, Myanmar, Ethiopia, which actually went into some conflict resolution, and other places that are just so lamentable that we talk. So I wanted to keep that Myanmar alive. So that will be on that in that way. What else? I'm taking a look now. Oh, the whole balance of power, Cuban Missile Crisis, Estonia, that will be on there. The idea that the balance of power theory is still alive and is beyond any kind of culture, any language, anything. I mean, Castro was smart when he brought the Soviets in. He said, if you're going to keep on attacking me, I'm going to bring in a counterbalance. Estonia doing the same thing. Ukraine right now, bringing in NATO. NATO might not be fighting, but it's bringing in the military hardware to defend itself from Russia. So balancing is definitely still very, very important. And that gets into the thing about Taiwan. I love some of you have done the one on Taiwan. Will China invade? Is that oh my God, this is like, we're going into very strange world here. We're going to see what happens there, but that's all about alliances, right? The balance of power to survive. So Taiwan, will it survive? I mean, that's a big national security question. Should we even still be in alliance with Taiwan? There's another one for you. I should have that debate. What else? Persian Gulf, the context of hybrid warfare. That's all of them. It reflects all of them. Non-state actors, state actors, cyber warfare, compound warfare, etc. That's a good article. I really like it. It's about Lebanon, which I think is important because it's not really talked about that much, but there is a huge crisis right now in Lebanon, a political crisis like in a lot of countries, and that's important to understand. The idea of constructivism, Zoom midterm. Anything on the Zoom midterm can be there. What will I put on there? Oh, maybe about the Black Widows. That's a good one. Oh, Dora Maria Tellez. That's an intersubjective understanding of terrorism. I do it in all my classes. Putin is not paying me, unfortunately. I would take money, but he's never offered it. That's from a Colombian bar, so you just know I'm not in the KGB. But Dora Maria Tellez was a hero in her own country of Nicaragua, but a terrorist to the United States. Now, probably not so much. But the point is that, terrorism, we have to understand, is an intersubjective understanding. We could say, oh, look at the terrorists in Vietnam, but they had the support of a lot of people in Vietnam. So the idea of what a terrorist is definitely up for debate. And the Colombian peace process is in there. That's incorporating ex-combatants. That's very important because I wanted to throw that in there, one, so you have to see what I do. But two, more importantly, it's something we don't talk about in crises. And I think that's sad. And I think we learned our lessons from World War I, because if you look at like the Black Hands, Mussolini's group, the ex-World War I fighters that went into the Nazis and did all this stuff, basically, the issue here is, what do you do with these ex-combatants, right? Because they went to Mussolini and Hitler, and that helped swell the ranks of Nazism and fascism. So we have to incorporate these people back in society, which isn't easy. It's not like they're going to say, okay, I'm going to go and work for IBM, right? I mean, they don't have the skills. So the United Nations came in and other groups to try to teach skills, etc. And that was one of the things I did in the pizzeria. The Black Widows, that's an excellent question. Since you asked it, Dana, I'm so glad you did. I'll just put it on the exam because that's important, because that reflects now you know the question that will be on the exam from the midterm, at the midterm meeting. The Black Widows are very important. They were a group of I think, a mix of mothers and widows of the ex-soldiers that were killed in Chechnya. And then they came back with quote unquote terrorist attacks against the Russians. So the thing here is, a few points about this is, number one, this was Chechnya. No one really cared, and it is so lamentable. One, this is what I believe. I think the world has a little racism in it, right? Oh, they're Muslim, they're darker skin, they're not like Europeans, so they didn't pay attention to them, just like Rwanda genocide. Second, it's not mainstream Europe. It's not like the Ukraine or something like that. The world turned its head on the Chechens, and, it just turned their back on the Chechens, and it's very lamentable. And, what's her name? Merkel was asked about this, and she said, no, I have no regrets. Well, you really should, because, you should admit when you're wrong. And I do all the time. I do it like 9 times a day. So, because I'm wrong like 90% of the time. But this, I'm right. She should have said, look at we should have done something about the Chechen wars. We had some sanctions and little things, but they were brutal there. And the Russians don't like the Chechens. When Russia once told me, oh, they're animals. So they brutalized those people. I mean, it was just a brutal war. And then obviously when Russia was expanding, it started seeing its sights on the Ukraine. And we know Georgia and all this stuff. So it's not that I'm anti-Russian at all, or I don't think they have legitimate grievances or anything like that. I think the problem here is that, we basically, Putin has been expanding significantly. Not that the United States doesn't, because we do too. And I do like balancing. And we should have probably tried balancing early on. And I don't think we made the right choices all the time, bombing the hell out of Serbia. Although Serbia, no offense to the Serbians, we always have a lot of Serbians, we're committing genocide. But at the same time, Russia, that was like bombing Russia right when it was down and out. It was very unpopular. We bombed the Chinese embassy, accidentally. And, that's like tantamount to, Russia winning the Cold War and bombing Mexico. So it's like, it probably wasn't the best deal. And I'm kind of against, sticking all those countries in NATO and the European Union and, the population begins to side with Putin. So that will be kind of on the exam. Something has to do with like, what did Russia do previously? I mean, the Chechen war was brutal, and there was more than one. There was like 4 of them or something. Maybe one of you know better than me, but brutal. So I hope that helps your question, answer your question, Dan. I know I can be all over the place because I got so much knowledge in here. That's why. See, I did a lot of drugs when I was young, so now there's a lot of space. So now, so much space. I don't know what to do with it. So. Thank you. You're welcome. What else? What else do we have? Anything else? That's about it. Oops, go ahead.
Intersubjective terrorism.
That's Haley, that's thanks for asking that. That's Dora Mediateas. The idea that terrorism is not just a fact, it's intersubjective. Like if, I was going to say the Ukrainians, the English were not calling Benjamin Franklin, a hero. Right now he's a hero. There's 1,000 cities throughout the United States named Franklin. There's universities, all this stuff. But during that time, he was a traitor. So it really depends on where you sit. And we have to understand that in national security. Because I'm sure a lot of those Chechens who died were considered heroes, but the Russians would consider them terrorists. Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah, one of my correlations was in you had said it, I'm not sure if it was this or if it was in 160. You had talked about in the Fortress videos how they had got other navies to attack and also pirates to attack. And so depending on which side you were on was whether the pirates were heroes or terrorists.
That's a tough one to see pirates because you're right. But you're right in the sense that pirates are stealing, but are they giving it out to people and then they become heroes? Pablo Escobar was considered a hero to a lot of people in Colombia. I've been up there. I really think that that stands true. I had to rethink that because when you said pirates, that's a tough one because pirates right there is a very negative connotation. But the pirates actually in Somalia, the first ones, were fighting against people poaching and overfishing in their areas. So the first pirates that went out into Somalia were holding those ships. No one was really dying, if you know about the Somalian pirates, and bringing the money back to the fishermen and everything. So they were definitely heroes. But then you get the mafia involved and less heroes. But that's an excellent point about there you go. You got your paper already, so you don't even have to worry about it. There's your paper. The national security of piracy. Oh, there's a good paper right there if anyone wants it. Good point. Yeah, and that's right. I remember having you too in the other classes. I remember some of you in other classes. Some of you take me for quite a bit. Any other questions? Now, if there's any questions, do you have any other questions about anything else outside it? Because we did cover this. I'm looking through this. Yeah, Vietnam demonstrated all those things. Asymmetrical terrorism. That's the, the innovative attacks of that. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's pretty good. Mersheimer's argument, the expansion of NATO. He really didn't like the expansion of NATO. He's been fighting it forever and against it. And he also, one of his big things is Ukraine should not give up any nuclear capabilities through the Nunn-Lugar Act, because he thought Russia will try to expand like all states. And he right now is having a great time. Although I think, he doesn't like the war, that the people basically did give up those nuclear capabilities. And now they are being invaded by Russia. So you have to understand Mersheimer's argument. That's from the first module. Thanks for coming in. Sorry, I'm a little late. Kids with karate. Anything else? Any questions about, now I know you have that research thing and they are not on top of it. Don't stress, this is for everyone watching, about the research thing. If they don't have it done already, I always take the student's side. So, that's how it is. Because I've been getting emails like, I know people are actually trying to do it and can't do it for whatever reason. And, they're not exactly, very coordinated at this time. So, if you don't end up doing it, you don't end up doing it. I can't really.
Yeah, Professor, I recently checked and there's really nothing as far as any surveys or experiments going on so far, or that
Yeah.
haven't been posted.
Okay, yeah, then what can I do? I mean, you won't be in trouble, because I know it says you have to do it, but like, if they don't have it going on, there's very little I can do. They're good people and I support it 100%, but what can I do? Any other questions, paper questions, course questions, anything here?
Professor, I have a question
Hmm?
about the paper. Do you think I can link national security with food security issues?
Yeah. The first question asked by Joseph was non-traditional, traditional security. 100%. This is one of those classes, though. Oh my God. You're open to do what you want, what interests you. And these
Okay.
online students have a lot of older students. No one here is old. No one here is old. But with real experience, work, and all that stuff. And you might have real interests and very exciting interests. And I'm not saying the younger students don't, because they do as well. So I keep it open. So if you're really interested in food security, that is awesome. I mean, not if it's bad that we have to talk about it,
Yeah.
but it's awesome that you have an interest and passion in that. And I 100% think you could definitely do something on that, because food is definitely a national security issue. A lot of revolutions happen because of the lack of food, etc. And also, when you do your paper, if you do want to go to law school, graduate school, and other schools, or get internships, and you want, and some need a paper, try to do a good paper here, and then give it to we have the writing center, and then you can hand it in as an example of a paper as well. So
Well, actually, I'm doing it for my work, so
oh.
like double dipping,
Yeah, that's good. That's, as Peter would say, killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't, because you don't want to kill any birds. But yeah, that's a great. Then yeah, anything utilitarian like that, I totally support.
Okay.
What? Anything else from anyone? I thought I have to head out. Oh, okay. Thanks, Dane, for stopping by. Anything else? If nothing, go ahead, Haley.
Can you talk a little bit about how national security has evolved?
Go. Could I?
Yeah, it's on the study guide.
Yeah, that's like what Joseph was talking about. With the non-traditional, traditional, it's evolved to incorporate more things. Like food security is a great example, right? A long time ago during the Cold War, it's just about alliances, territory, military hardware, etc. Conventional ideas. Now, the environment. We're doing climate refugees, right? And I hope you all have access to it. I tried to get it for free for you. So basically the whole idea of that is incorporating these other issues. Climate refugees is the perfect example of non-traditional, how national security is evolving. Same with food security, etc. It's not just about territory, military hardware. It's about all these other issues. And climate change right now is a huge issue. Whether you think, or whether you believe it's person-made, I don't say man-made, because a lot of women ruin things too, right? So it's person-made or natural is not important, because even Newt Gingrich himself, and he's arch conservative from Georgia, is in that video saying we have to do something. So it's very interesting documentary. So that would be what this evolution is, to incorporate a broad range of subjects. Anything else?
Could
Hello?
you,
Oh, good.
sorry,
Okay. Not Makai.
Hi.
Go ahead. You don't have to apologize.
could you go over the terrorism as a US centric concept?
Yeah, that's exactly Dora Maria Tejas. The idea of intersubjective understanding. What is a terrorist? So in one of those, and I do it all the time. Jonathan, you said you took me for the 160. It's very important to understand that not everyone sees the world like the United States, right? So like when we invaded Vietnam, we said we're going to liberate them. Johnson called them pajama people, denigrated them, we'll be in and out. That's not what happened. We see things in a centric view. It's not just the US, it's Russia, it's, Cuba, it's all these. I mean, it's tough to get outside of your comfort zone in your bubble. So we live in centric views. I mean, the Soviet Union, Afghanistan is one of the perfect examples where, not the best war, and they call it the Soviet version of Vietnam. So you basically have a lot of war. You actually have a lot of idea that, oh, this is a terrorist, but then you go to that country and they end up being a hero. Right. So, you have to understand that national security, even like, Che Guevara in Bolivia, when he went there, he said, I'm going to start a revolution. It didn't work well. He spoke Spanish. All the people were speaking indigenous in the rural areas, which they don't like Argentinian people that much anyways. And the Argentinian people don't like them. There's a lot of racism between the groups. So, we have the tendency to be centric. We think, oh, this group will love me, or this group will do this, or this group will, overthrow this government. We try to overthrow Maduro in Venezuela, although the real power is Vladimir Padrino. The thing is that, we always think, what's his name? Ahmad Jalabi of Iraq. He was telling us how, Iraq, the war would be a cakewalk, talking to younger students. They don't remember it. It was, because the first Gulf War went so fast, everyone thought, this would be, not a long-term thing. And Afghanistan and then Iraq were like our longest wars. So you have to kind of break outside of that US-centric box, whatever centric box you have, to kind of understand to have better policies. It's a difficult thing to do. Anything else? I can talk for hours. You don't want to ask me any. Well, if nothing else, we'll end there. I'll appreciate. I'm taking who's here. Not bad if you didn't come. It's bad, but it's great that you people here. Then if you do need a recommendation, I can say, oh yeah, those people showed up at my, Zoom meeting, and that's good because we have like 200 students in the class and only like 6. And I do know I came late, and I do apologize to the people who were waiting and stuff like that. I thought I could get out. I usually say, as if you've had me before, a little after 6, and then boom, you're stuck. And when are they going to fix McClintock? Is anyone here in Arizona? No one here is in Arizona there?
It's never changing, bro. It's been like this forever.
Yeah, it's like I'm stuck there. Like, I'm like, is this going to change or what? Amy,
Mr.
anything?
Ridley,
Sorry, Thomas.
Mr. Ripley, Thomas Holder.
Yes.
I do have one question about the research paper. Did I understand that we as a student are picking the topic, or are you picking a series of topics?
Yeah, no, I don't do that. I know a lot of teachers do that, professors. I don't do that. I think it's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's like, you're adults, your interests. Like, look at Amy's very all excited now she can do this. I think we're working here. That's what I want you to do. I think, I don't know you well enough. I want to say, Thomas, you got to do this, right? Do what you think is good. Some of you take a class for different reasons. So, if it's part of your work, if it's just, sometimes people take it for fun, right? And do something that, you think is very important. So it's 100% up to you. It does have to be internationally oriented, but if you do want to do something on national security, because it's supposed to be an international thing, but if you do want to do something on the recent wave of gun killings, the lamentable situation, you're welcome to do that as well. In the US, I'm referring to. So yeah, good question, Thomas. And thanks for the thing. I got your thing. Didn't you send me that thing today?
The email today on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you sent me out. I should send it out about the Wall Street Journal article.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of an odd twist.
Yeah.
When there's so much finger pointing going on that we're not looking at the corporate and the manufacturers and the lifetime of the product that they're trying to stock, and whether they're going to buy them or not. How our hospital's going to buy them, or are they going to let them sit there?
Right. I didn't read it. I mean, I read it after you sent it, but you mentioned you
Yeah.
probably saw it where I didn't. All right, I have to go. So, any other things? We can head out, and I appreciate everyone coming, and we'll have another one also before the final, which I promise I will be there on time. So take care, everyone, and have an awesome night.
All right, thank